Good morning. My name is Debbie Pond. I'm with your Home Awareness and Support Services. Thank you, Joy, very much for the informative session that you gave us, and the little bit of a teacher in her came out, I saw, as she gave us a little bit of instruction. I'm happy to welcome Jennifer Richardson, who is the Director of the Provincial Anti-Human Trafficking Coordination Office, and Cassandra Diamond, who is the Executive Director and founder of BridgeNorth, and Detective Simon James, who is in charge of the human trafficking team with York Regional Police. The last three will take just a few moments to have a few minutes to speak, and then if you would like to begin texting your questions, then they will be answering the questions for you. Thank you.
So I won't take as long as I'll give these folks to you, and Joy talked lots of about what I think the information is important. I'm really short, I gotta lower this to here. So yeah, I'm Jennifer. I spent a number of years myself being trafficked, so I have lived experience of being trafficked. And I was actually saying the other day to somebody that I just realized this, I guess. I have spent more of my life being involved in what's often called the game than I haven't, because I was trafficked at 13 all across Canada for a number of years and into the US. And then I was able to exit and was able to graduate high school, which was really lucky. I was the first person in my family actually to graduate high school. I managed to get through a bachelor in social work, which almost killed me, but I managed to do that, and then I was silly enough to go and do my master's. So I investigated child exploitation, child pornography, those types of cases for a number of years, and then was one of the people that helped design Manitoba's strategy, which did have the largest strategy to deal with child exploitation in Canada until Ontario announced ours. So in Ontario, we now have the largest anti-human trafficking strategy in North America. Yay. But because we are relatively new, a year and a little bit in, we have a long ways to go, right? There's lots of things we know about trafficking through research, and again, through people that have been engaged or been involved through non-governmental organizations, or people who have actually been trafficked that have helped us to kind of understand some of the things that we need to be doing. And I often say, I worked more with police than I did with social workers for most of my career, because police were the people who were dealing with this population. And it is a criminal offense, and I would love to see everyone who is trafficking people be put in jail. But the reality is that a very, very, very small percentage of those people who are being trafficked will ever come forward to police. And so, one of the messages that I've been talking about is that, and Joy echoed, is this is not just a police issue. It is a social work issue, a non-governmental organization issue, a Christian issue. It is a lot of people's responsibility to ensure that children and people are safe in our communities. And so through the Ontario strategy, we have funded over 44 organizations to do a wide range of the work. So we have people that are doing education, we have organizations that are doing outreach, we have organizations that are providing housing to people, people that are doing training. There's a really wide range of services that are being provided all over our province for specifically people who are being trafficked. But again, we know that we're really probably not catching everybody. Ontario has the most human trafficking in all of Canada. So we have about 70%, and that is only police-reported cases. In my, I don't know how many years it's been, but in my years, I've always said, for every case that that I've been involved with, that we were able to move forward in the criminal system, I had 50 that I couldn't. So if Ontario has 70% of the criminal cases, can you only imagine how many cases we don't know about that are occurring, right? And Joy talked about, there is still lots of shame and people feeling that it's bad kids or bad people that, become exploited. That's really just not the case. And so I think it's really important for all of us to take responsibility to say, what are the signs? And Joy had some of them up there. What can we do, right? How do we become aware? And if we think that one of our friends, for the kids in the room, might be, becoming groomed, or that something seems not so right, to tell someone. If we see one of our friends' kids, maybe even something going on with them, ask them, do they need help? Are things okay? Because I can tell you, I've had to tell more parents in my time that their child's being trafficked, or more, say to other kids, this is what's happening. So I think it's really important for everyone in the room to take a responsibility to start to share some awareness and to gain some awareness. So I'm very glad that you're all here this morning.
Sandra.
Really a warm hello to everybody in this room. My board of directors sends their greetings. That's Amanda Stassen, Joya Stover, and Lisa Klassen. I want to thank you very much, Leah and committee, for inviting me to be a part of the Aurora Prayer Breakfast, discussing a most important issue facing our community and society today. It is also my great pleasure to be here with such knowledgeable presenters and panelists. I'm here on behalf of BridgeNorth Women's Mentorship and Advocacy Service. It's a charitable organization right here in York Region. Our mission is to work and to walk alongside the women and girls in our community who have experienced human trafficking and sexual exploitation. Let me tell you just about the participants we have in our program today. We are working with girls from the age of 17 to 40. From all walks of life. We are working with girls who could go pro in tennis and others who were raised within a trafficking family. As a survivor of this horrific crime, I can be sure when I tell you that trafficking has no regard for your age, for your gender, for your race, or for your status. In the 10 years that I was trapped in the sex industry, I met girls and women of all walks of life. At 17, I would go from the classroom to the stage. Nobody knew what was happening to me because nobody was aware of the issue that was going on in our community and in our society. And this would be only the beginning of a decade of violent and degrading experiences in my life. 3 days after exiting the industry, I would bow my heart and my knee, and I am eternally indebted to the cross. God saved me. He gave me a new life, a new hope, and a new chance. And I'm telling you, I'm using it. Thank you. By His grace, He set the stage of my life to start BridgeNorth. At BridgeNorth, we offer women and girls an opportunity to meet with peer mentors, others who have gone through the same experiences that they've gone through and the troubles that they're facing, so someone who can understand the complexities of the struggles. We advocate for women and girls when they need someone to speak, when they can't have a voice of their own. And we also seek to educate, we train professionals and the general public. You see, we do that because I shopped at our malls, I ate at our restaurants, and I went to our schools, but nobody noticed the pain I was in. You saw the stats today. Over 90% of victims are Canadian citizens. And at BridgeNorth, we really encourage people not to be bystanders. We have got to look up and notice what's happening around us. I'm so encouraged by every young person in this room. Everyone is a part of the solution. Everyone in this room is a part of the solution, and I encourage you to have conversations with the men, the women, and the youth in your church. I encourage you to talk about human trafficking with them and other very difficult topics like the root cause of this crime. Ladies and gentlemen, I have never one time in 10 years been bought by a female. I have only been bought by men, and we have to address that. That's the fuel that fuels this, that fuels the demand, therefore the supply of girls and women. We know that there's other root causes that need to be addressed, like pornography, cyberbullying, childhood sexual abuse. I'm so sorry to say this. We all know it happens outside of the church, but it happens inside of the church as well. Not pointing fingers, not at all. But these are the problems that I'm being told about every day. All walks of life. When people do learn what's happening in their own communities, they always ask me what they can do, and so let me tell you what I know that you can do. You can address these critical issues from the pulpit. You can host events, you can support local agencies who are doing the work on the ground, and you can pray. I bet some of you in the room can sense I use up those prayers. We all need to take a minute and we need to look around us. We need to notice what's happening. We need to educate ourselves, then take action, and it starts with your church and you. Thank you.
Thanks, Cassandra. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Simon James, and I'm one of the unit commanders with the York Regional Police Special Victims Unit. The Special Victims Unit is composed of 4 primary sections: the sexual assault section, the crimes against children section, the internet child exploitation section, and the human trafficking section. So I was asked to give a little bit of insight into what our human trafficking section does, as well as give you a sense of what human trafficking looks like in York Region right now. So as a police organization, we're committed obviously to combating this horrific crime, and we are actually one of the largest human trafficking teams right now in the country. The unit itself is made up of various detectives and investigators who do nothing but investigate human trafficking cases. And we'll do all types of human trafficking cases. We'll investigate labor trafficking, we investigate sex trafficking, but by far our most common case that comes through our office on a pretty much daily basis is sex trafficking. We've developed a 3-pronged approach to try and combat sex trafficking. We attempt to rescue victims from the sex trade, and that's a lot easier said than done, as has been mentioned today. And we work with a lot of our community partners like Victim Services, 360 Kids, the York Region Children's Aid Society, BridgeNorth, a whole variety of partners to try and deliver kind of a wraparound type service to try and help extract girls and victims who have been victimized and exploited in the sex trade. And we also look at, obviously, one of the key things, arresting and targeting those who are trafficking these girls. So I'm referring to pimps and traffickers themselves. Again, that's a complex crime to investigate, and it's not an easy solution to just arrest and charge these individuals. These cases often go on for months, sometimes years. And we work with very closely with a special Crown Attorney unit in the province that do nothing but prosecute human trafficking cases. And we've had quite a bit of success thus far in relation to our partnership with them. And it is on a frequent basis, we're apprehending and arresting these individuals and bringing them up through the court system. And we also try and be proactive, and we focus on the John component or the purchaser component. There's been some projects in the news that we've done, one of them being Project Raphael, and that's a fairly well-known York Regional Police project that involves members from our unit operating in an undercover type capacity, speaking to individuals online who are trying to purchase children for sex. To date, we've arrested 118 men in York Region. Thank you. You know, it's kind of a bittersweet thing. It's not something that it's very sad that we've had to do that, and that those numbers climb. climb every year, but it shows you the reality of the demand for the sexual exploitation of children. And it's occurring right here in York Region. And when people ask about what does sex trafficking look like in York Region, I can say the online component is one thing that is frequent to hear. Often there's communication online, it starts online, then it moves into the hotels or Airbnbs or various residences or homes throughout the region. But the big misconception that a lot of people think is that these victims are shipped here from overseas, and that can happen, and it does happen here. It happens all over the province, but the majority of our victims are York Region girls. They're the girl next door. They're people who you would all know, and they are groomed and brought into the sex trade, usually through violence or different means. But once in there, they're heavily exploited. And they're then moved throughout the province, often the country. And it's not uncommon for us to have a victim from York Region show up in Montreal, or a victim from Montreal show up in York Region. It's a very transient, mobile crime. And it's a very complicated type of case to investigate. So I know I'm supposed to be very short here, so I will probably keep it at that. But hopefully that gives you a slight indication of what sex trafficking looks like in York Region right now. But as I said, events like this are great, and spreading awareness is great, and I think that awareness is increasing as time goes on. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So you've given me lots of questions to ask. We only have a few minutes, so our speakers are going to be succinct in their answers, and you may be able to chat with them, grab them on their way out the door after this morning. So the first question is for you, Simon. How prevalent is human trafficking in the high schools in York Region?
Is this on? Oh, yes, it is. I mean, it's there. It's prevalent in a lot of different venues. We do get cases with young girls who are being groomed and being trafficked out of the high schools. That's one of our biggest concerns, obviously, is that we really try and focus on the exploitation of juveniles. But it's there. It's in every community in Ontario. It's not unique just to York Region. But it's definitely something that we have a major concern of.
Thank you. Jen, this question is for you. The media, there's lots of reports around sex trafficking, but do you see in your position as director other kinds of human trafficking that happen in cities and towns in our rural areas here in Ontario?
Yep. So we do have a number of labor trafficking cases. Ontario has had the actual largest human trafficking case in Canada to date, but we also see forced marriage, so where people are not consenting to be married to someone, happening lots in Ontario. So those would be the three types, but we've also had some organ cases as well. But probably the largest is the sex.
Thank you. Joy, as teachers, what can we do about educating our students around human trafficking?
You need to have a concentrated program that talks about how the perpetrators work, how they groom the youth, so the youth themselves can be armed with what to look for. What we've seen in the schools is we've told them, that the perpetrators can be in malls, they could be in cinemas, they could be at sports events, and these are places and other places where kids are. And this is what the kids don't expect. They expect that to be safe places because traditionally they have been. But having a program, our program and other programs are available. I know the one that we have, 8 to 12. We're working on one grade 5 to 7. It's in cartoon form. But these are very expensive programs to put together where the experts work on them, so it takes a while. And if you don't have those programs in your school, find out about it and just talk to your students about it. The goal is to prevent them from getting lured. Teachers can very much be very active in that. Prevention is far better than anything else because, it takes a lot of money. They say $600,000. It has been tracked right now to rehabilitate one survivor of human trafficking. So if no one's interested in doing this, look at your tax dollars, because that's where those tax dollars come from. So everyone should be interested in supporting organizations that work with the survivors of human trafficking. Churches especially should partner with them to make sure that that funding is stable, because the work that they do is extremely important. So as far as teachers, you should get this in your curriculum. If you remember a few years ago, they put a smoking program in. You know, you don't smoke, and they showed pictures, and it stopped a lot of the smoking. It still occurs. Now we're with the human trafficking. They need to have a curriculum just like that, where the kids understand the ramifications of getting hooked into something like this.
Thank you. Cassandra, we know that parents often find themselves in an environment that they don't understand. What kind of resources are out there in the community for parents of human trafficking victims?
Well, BridgeNorth partners with Your Home, and we offer a parent caregiver support group that's hosted once a month in our private office in Newmarket, and it is a place where parents can come, explore with other parents, and kind of express what's been going on in their lives and things along those lines. I think that Victim Services also refers parents to counseling services, more of an individual type of care. And I think that we could stand using some more support for parents in this way for sure.
Simon, victims, where do they usually get lured from here in York Region? Like what places do you see in your cases?
I don't know if I'd say a specific location. Like, I mean, malls, there's all different types of places. There's sometimes correlations with marginalized youth and things like that. But that said, they can come from anywhere, from all walks of life. They could be the daughter of a police officer. Like, it's difficult to pinpoint one exact thing. There's been studies and correlations with certain vulnerable youth, but that said, they can come from anywhere. And in York Region, again, we see them from all walks of life, from all over. So I wouldn't put it to specific places in the region. It's just, do you want to?
I do.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks. I'm not Simon.
Okay.
Online, I wanted to let you know that I've noticed that so much more activity is moving online, and not just to certain advertising websites. If we could tell our kids, don't go on pimp.com and you won't end up with a pimp, that would be excellent. It does not work that way. My real concern is that we're seeing mainstream social media platforms like they're all Twitter, all of them, Snapchat, they're all being used as luring agents. So sometimes our guards are down when we're using normal websites that we'd normally use to interact with people all day long. And our parents also may not be recognizing that even though they're on Twitter or even though they're on Snapchat, which they normally use, that there is a predator lurking behind that screen that may be deceiving their child.
Jen, this question is for you. In your role, do you see young boys, transgender, LGBT youth being trafficked?
Yep, we know that the younger the child is, actually the more vulnerable they are in the sex trade. You can sell a 13-year-old for much more than you can a 19-year-old person, and you can sell an 8-year-old much more than you can a 13-year-old. So the younger the person is, the more valuable they are to the offenders or the traffickers. And then, again, vulnerable children or children who are marginalized, so LGBTQ2 plus communities, we do see an overrepresentation of those children. We also see an overrepresentation of Indigenous children. And then I think the online piece is the big part as well, right? So we are seeing even regular platforms. I was told yesterday that, and I'm not going to say the name of it, but a platform that was designed to ensure that kids who might have some vulnerabilities, either cognitively or developmentally, had a good person in their life, that offenders were targeting those types of platforms to then lure kids who had cognitive or developmental disabilities. So it really is everywhere, and we do see higher populations. For the boys, everywhere just about in the world is about, you see like a 10% to the 90% girls. We know boys report less, so in academic research, it's been around, what people have estimated is around 20 to 25% boys. So there still is an overrepresentation of girls in every country in the world that has ever looked at this issue.
So the last question goes to you, Simon. What is the most difficult challenge you have in getting your cases to court?
Well, there's a lot. As I mentioned earlier, the mobile nature of this crime is difficult. So we may have a victim here today, and she may be gone tomorrow, and she may be halfway across the country. And there's a lot of manipulation by these pimps. A lot of our victims are taught not to trust the police, don't speak to the police. And in locating these offenders, again, they're very mobile. And they could be here today, and they could be in Winnipeg tomorrow. So we have to work with a lot of other police agencies and a lot of other groups to try and track these individuals down and help support our victims in multiple geographical locations. It's not like they're just right here in York, and it's a problem that's really on a national level.
So I'd like to say thank you for all the panelists, and like I said, if you grab them on the way out, you can have a couple more questions with them. Let's give them a round of applause.